Welcome to San Joaquin Spotlight, a public affairs program featuring conversations about life in the central San Joaquin Valley. This program is brought to you in partnership between KFSR 90.7 FM and CMAC Fresno. I'm your host, Sevag Tateosian. Today, we're going to be talking about law on San Joaquin Spotlight. A familiar law firm is in the studio today, Lang, Richert, and Patch. Did I say that right?
You did.
We have Mr. Frank Lang, Mr. Matthew Quall.
Correct.
Both of you, welcome to the program.
Thank you. Thanks for having us.
Thank you.
So the law firm that you're from, it has a regular name. I mean, we hear it all the time. Mr. Lang, why did you start this law firm?
We started the law firm because Phil Fullerton and I were lawyers and we had to do legal work.
And so did you start work for someone else before you decided it's time for us to open our own law firm?
Actually, both of us did. Phil started with the same firm I did that was a tax firm in town. And he left and went out with a guy named Ken Andreen. After Ken Andreen was appointed to the bench, I went with Phil as an employee, and then we became partners in October of 1963.
How important is it to have a partner that you can trust, especially in the legal field?
If you can't trust your partner, you ought to go somewhere else.
But liability issues, if your partner makes a mistake, do you automatically get charged with the mistake as well?
Of course.
So talk about now, you came in after Mr. Lang started the firm, correct?
A couple years later.
So what's your role with the firm?
Right now, I'm the managing partner of the law firm.
And what does that do, a managing partner? Are you a lawyer?
I am a lawyer. I started probably right around the time Frank was retiring. I started in 1999 as an associate attorney with the firm. And then over the course of years, I became a partner, and as of November of last year, I was elected managing partner of the firm. So I have a practice. I practice law. I'm an attorney with a law firm, and then I'm also challenged with the prospect of trying to manage 21 to 22 attorneys and our staff and employees.
It sounds like you have a lot on your plate.
I do.
How do you keep organized?
Oh, I don't. No, I've surrounded myself with incredible people, both attorneys and staff, that they help me along. They help my practice and the management of the firm.
For our audience members that are thinking of going into law, what advice would you give them? I mean, the reason I ask is because on TV shows, we always see the lawyer in front of the jury in the courtroom arguing. Is there more to law than that?
Yes, that's probably about 5% of what you actually do. I mean, right now, we're in a civil litigation firm, so really the statistics are that only 95% of the cases will actually go to trial, where you're having the opportunity to address a jury or even the court. And so that's that 5% that you see on TV, which is the salaciousness and the fun. But the other 95% of the time, you're really counseling clients, you're acting as an advocate for those clients, you're doing a lot of the litigation workup to the trial that may or may not come about. So really there's more to the law than just the fun part of being in the courtroom and arguing your position. You have to research, you have to write, you have to analyze. There are motions that you have before the court that you have to argue that dictate the outcome of the case and whether you're even able to present it to a jury. So there's so many different aspects to the law. What you see on TV is not necessarily the daily grind that we engage in.
So you mean to tell me you don't spend all day in front of a jury in a courtroom in front of a judge?
No.
Mr. Lang, I want to talk about how this industry has changed. I mean, with technology and computers, let's talk a little bit about when you started, how were things?
Well, when we started practice in 1962, and Phil actually started before that, there were no copy machines, no computers, no faxes. We had typewriters. We had electric typewriters, several kinds. At one time, I had 2 secretaries. Now I think we have 1 secretary for 2 or 3 attorneys.
Supposed to.
The Fresno County Bar Association was probably 200 lawyers. Now it's probably close to 2,000. I don't know exactly how many, but it's a different atmosphere of practice. At that time, we knew probably every lawyer and every judge in the county. Now you don't. It's impossible to know all of them personally. And as legal areas grow, the kinds of practices multiply. Some of the civility and social aspect of practicing in a small town is gone. It's a bigger place, it's a bigger theater, it's a bigger atmosphere. So both the mechanics of the practice and the practice itself has changed. Today, all research is done on computers, or almost all research. At that time, we only had books.
And I want to talk about that because, you know, when you're writing a motion, you have to cite law, relevant law, or else you're going to be in trouble.
Correct.
Before there were
You're going
books.
to lose.
Before there were books where people would go to and look at if a law is relevant. Now I understand that's changed.
Well, there's still books, and most lawyers have gravitated towards online research, whether you're through LexisNexis or Westlaw or any other sort of online publication. So the books themselves and handling the books is somewhat antiquated, and most libraries that have books like that either aren't being updated or are rather obsolete. So everything is online. You have new research skills. You have a lot of the younger attorneys that are more adept at online research that it's just a different way of researching now. And so even 10, 15 years ago, we were still dealing with books. You were going into the library. We had a beautiful library. And now
Had a beautiful library.
Had is the
Keyword had.
operative word, unfortunately. Beautiful library. We had you know, everything you would ask for in a full-service law firm. And now it is a very expensive storage area, unfortunately. We do have some of the treatises and some of the hardbound books that you would actually turn to as a source of research. But for the most part, I'd say 85 to 90% of our research is done online.
Is there a need for more lawyers? I mean, you know, there's always this joke, oh, we don't need more lawyers. And you know, sometimes I've heard teachers say, look at the phone book, look at all the lawyers out there. You want to be a lawyer. But you all, you live and breathe this stuff. So is there a need for more lawyers?
Tricky question. There's a need for more excellent lawyers. I think that there are a number of lawyers that that perhaps maybe they're the ones we read about in the papers that give lawyers a bad name. But no, there's always, in every profession, there's always a need for excellent attorneys, doctors, business persons.
Mr. Lang, I want to talk about when you first started this law firm. Did you anticipate that it's going to grow this big? I mean, you're up to multiple lawyers now.
I would say that we did not have any number in mind, but we did want to handle cases that were significant for larger clients. And over a period of time, we built the practice on larger clients and more sophisticated litigation and practice. And you need people in a number of substantive areas. We have people with big reputations in areas such as bankruptcy and creditors' rights, construction litigation, construction law, employment law, other areas of significance. We also do medical malpractice and personal injury, larger cases. And laws are becoming, you have more laws and regulations coming out of administrations every year, both on a state and federal level. So you can't keep up with everything, and you try to keep up in an area, maybe a broader area or a more narrow area. But you have to do that to practice adequately.
How do you do that? How do you keep up with the law? I mean, you made a very valid point. New laws, it seems like, are coming out, especially with health care and all that stuff now. How do you keep up with all that stuff? Are there classes that you take?
There are daily changes in any area of the law. We get legal alerts, legal bulletins. We sign up for a number of services that provide updates. And if you're in a certain practice area, you're either in groups within the industry, you know what is going on. You know when there are big cases that are pending before the Supreme Court. You know that there are issues that are being dictated by courts of appeal and the like. So you're able to find out what is going on in your area so long as you stay abreast of it.
Is it when a lawyer takes a case to the Supreme Court, is that like a feather in the cap? I mean, is that like a big deal?
It is a big deal. It's very, very rare. We actually just had a case conclude in the California Supreme Court, and that was I think we've done that twice now, maybe.
Yeah, we've also had 2 cases in the U.S. Supreme Court.
Yes, so it is a very rare occasion.
And do lawyers go argue, or how? Explain to our audience, because you know it's a different level when it gets to appeals, especially the U.S. Supreme Court.
I'd like to say that I was one of the lawyers that handled it. I was not, so I'm aware of it generally. But essentially, either Court of Appeals or Supreme Court, you're dealing with a panel of judges that the issues have been fully briefed. The judges have caucused and made their determination, perhaps beforehand, and are seeking clarification at time of oral argument. But you as an attorney are provided the opportunity to address the court. You're given very specific time frames in which to make your oral argument and any sort of rebuttal. And for the most part, the judges will dictate the flow of the argument.
Mr. Lang, I want to ask you about lawyers themselves. In your opinion, have they been, when you started, were they more conservative as far as dress, and now has it changed, or is it the same?
It's changed somewhat, but not very much. I think most courts demand that lawyers wear coats and ties in court. Occasionally, if court gets into evening, especially when the federal courts, they weren't heating the courtrooms or cooling them, and you'd get into evening and the judges would suggest take off your jackets. But the practice is before the court has pretty much remained the same in terms of attire.
You're going the direction I want to go with this conversation. So, in an actual courtroom, the lawyers, suit and tie.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
And so, what happens if, let's say, a lawyer comes in there without a shirt and tie? Can the judge throw him or her out?
Get his toothbrush. No, I've seen it before where there was some excuse that was proffered by the attorney, but the judge would not hear the matter without the attorney going and being properly attired.
And then, you know, let me ask you this question about lawyers themselves. So let's say that I'm on one side and you're on the other. Is it normal after hours for us to talk or get along, or is it the way lawyers are portrayed are when you're on both sides, boy, it's a fight. But after hours, is it different?
It depends on the case and it depends on the lawyers. You know, Frank was alluding to the fact that when they started, it was a much smaller bar within the Central Valley in Fresno, and everybody knew everybody. I think for the most part, we have that atmosphere still in the Central Valley in Fresno. That is, you're going to bump into whomever your opponent is at the grocery store. So if you're a paper tiger or if you're yelling and screaming over the phone and then you're in the line at Save Mart, you still have that close, somewhat feel that we have here in Fresno. So to answer your question, day in and day out dealing with Fresno lawyers, I think that you have more of a collegiality than you may have with lawyers in LA or in the San Francisco or some of the larger metropolitan areas. But it also depends upon your client and upon the issues. Your client doesn't want to see you buddying up to the opposing counsel when you're dealing with a multi-million-dollar problem. So you can fight and you can be at odds, but there's a level of professionalism and respect you have to show opposing counsel even after hours.
What percentage, in your opinion, of the cases get settled outside of court? I mean, we hear it all the time where there's negotiation and then the evening before or the week before trial is set, all of a sudden there's an agreement. What percentage, and is that common for something like that to happen?
Very common. I think I alluded to it earlier. There's 95% of the cases in the civil world actually settle. So only 5% go to court. It depends on when you settle. Oftentimes it's right before trial because you know that it's coming. The jury is going to make the decision. It's now outside of your control, you being the client. And so oftentimes as you lead up to that pronouncement, that day where you're no longer in control, parties do settle. And it just depends on how far into the litigation you get along the way in terms of when they do settle.
Are there times that you settle, you know you're right, but you settle just to end the case? Does that happen?
It does happen.
And why would that happen?
Well, any number of reasons. If, let's say you have a case and you're in the creditor's position and you're owed $1 million and you've gone through the litigation, you've gone through the depositions, you've got this person where, or entity where you will prevail at trial. You're never assured of that 100%, but you know you're going to win. Well, what if they file bankruptcy? And what if they've offered $100,000 on a $1 million claim, but they're going to file BK? You could chase them all the way through trial, expend those fees and costs, win, and then you're handed a piece of paper that they discharge in bankruptcy. So there are some business decisions that are made during the course of the litigation that sometimes you do settle for less than what you're owed, even when you're going to win.
Mr. Lang, what advice do you have for new upcoming lawyers? I mean, you've been doing this for a long time, and so what would you tell someone coming up right now saying, I want to be a lawyer?
Well, up-and-coming lawyers and somebody that wants to be a lawyer are two different cases. If somebody's already a lawyer and asked me for advice on how to practice, what I would tell them is be honest with your clients, give your clients value for their money. Don't go into court unprepared ever. Even if you expect to settle a case, you better be prepared to try it. Things like that.
Talk a little bit about what you're looking for in a new lawyer. Let's say that you're hiring and a lawyer comes through your doors, ready out of law school. What are you looking for?
I want that lawyer to be inspired. I want them to be smart. I want them to be engaging. I really want them coming in understanding what it means to be a lawyer, and that is working hard for your clients, working hard for your law firm, and for those that are ultimately going to be your business partners, and doing whatever it takes to win. Yeah. You have to represent your client's best interest, and if that means that you have to come in before 8 o'clock and stay past 5 o'clock, then so be it. And so I really, from a young lawyer's perspective, I want to see some fire in that person's eyes. I want them to be, in fact, I want them to come into me or to Frank or to one of the other founding partners and say, how do I get to where you guys were? How do I become the head of this organization?
You mentioned something very interesting, and does that happen a lot where lawyers work before 8 and stay after 5? I mean, there are some people out there who think when you're a lawyer, you're cashing in money. You don't have to put in long hours.
Yeah, they've been misinformed. No, lawyers work very hard. You have to. There are lawyers in our office that get in before 7 and leave after 6. They're putting in 10, 12-hour days, and you have to do that. You have to make sure that your client's interests are protected and that you're not just clocking in time, you're working the case up. You're making sure that you're forwarding the best interests of your clients, and that takes time. It takes energy.
What are you doing in that time? I mean, some people will say, oh, they're just there 10 hours, but they're drinking coffee and just chatting along. But they're actually working. What are they doing in that time?
They literally can be at their desk, either typing up a motion, conducting research, crafting arguments. They could be preparing for depositions. They are literally working that amount of time. Granted, everybody goes to lunch, everybody has coffee and breaks and the like, and we do try to have a collegial atmosphere, because if you just work, you're going to grind yourself out, and then you're just going to go into another profession or seek work elsewhere. But they really are working.
Have you seen that, where lawyers come in with all this fire and then a couple of years later that fire starts burning out?
It happens.
And I want to ask a question about marketing, because if people don't know that you exist, they won't come to you. How important is the whole marketing and social media aspect in today's world?
I think it's extremely important. Understanding how best to market, even utilizing social media, that's the unknown. And I can't speak for the very early years other than what I've heard, but a lot of the work that came the firm's way was based upon reputation, in the sense that these guys did excellent legal work, they had excellent results, and they were willing to spend that extra time to make sure that their clients' interests were represented well. And in that regard, they got follow-on work, and they got referrals. Now, with so many lawyers and so many law firms, you do need to make yourself, you need to set yourself apart. You need to get your name out there. And with social media as is what it is, you know, there's ways that you can do it with LinkedIn, tweeting, Facebook, you know, any number of avenues for that marketing. I don't think anybody's really cornered the market in terms of what actually works. So we're always striving to do better in the marketing aspect.
So let me ask you, back in the days, people used to say doctors and lawyers made all of the money, everybody else was far behind. Talk about that now, because there are lawyers out there who are struggling after, you know, going to law school, getting all this debt for law school, and now they're struggling. At one point, it wasn't like that, or was it? I'm asking either of you.
I don't know. I'm sure the doctors are still making all the money.
Mr. Lang, how about you? Are you seeing a difference?
Well, yeah. There's a lot of lawyers in California, probably more than there needs to be, and I'm sure some of them are struggling. It's you have to, when lawyers start out, if they just start out in a practice, they're going to struggle for a while because they don't have any clients. So you have to get clients, and one of the things you do is win cases, and pretty soon people on the other side of those cases you won come to see you and want you to represent them. And you acquire a reputation. Pretty soon other lawyers around the state and even around the country know who you are and what you do. And you get a lot of referrals. So you build your practice and you do all right.
And so let me ask about ethics in this whole thing, because there are a lot of jokes out there that people say about rotten lawyer or lying lawyer, but ethics is important in this whole equation.
Absolutely.
Talk about that.
Absolutely, ethics are important. Ethics, integrity, morality. If you bump the line, if you cross the line, if you even come close to the line, that gets out. You may win that particular case, or that particular issue may go in your favor, but ultimately, especially in this community, once you cross that line, it's very difficult to come back over, because you have now scoured your reputation. You are not trustworthy. And with respect to referrals, why would I refer a case to an unethical lawyer? I wouldn't. If there was a conflict and I had to take my biggest client, my most valued client, and I was going to give them over to another attorney or refer them to another attorney for this one matter, I certainly would never refer them to an unethical attorney.
So what are the topics that your law firm specializes in, or if specializes is an incorrect word to use, what are the topics that you engage in?
In terms of our practice areas, we have a creditor's rights, we have a bankruptcy practice, we have a construction litigation, employment law. We have a new partner that's come over that specializes in education law. We do general business and civil litigation, so any sort of business-to-business disputes is probably the crux of what we do, and then we have the specialty areas that I just listed. We do probate, trust and estates, plaintiff's personal injury, and medical malpractice as well.
How can people find out more information about your law firm, or is there a place they can go and meet some of the attorneys there?
Certainly. I'd love to meet. People that are interested in our firm are welcome to come by. We are in the Fig Garden Financial Village. Those are the white buildings in the back, right in the offset from Elbow Room and
off of Palm there.
Correct,
Yeah.
Palm and Shaw. And then we are on our website, www.lrplaw.net. We have a lot of information about our firm there.
Is it common for someone to interview the lawyer? I mean, you know, when we're selecting doctors, we want to meet the doctor and we want to talk to the doctor and we want to ask the doctor information before we give them our business. Is that common for a legal field, or do you see that someone says, okay, help me, lawyer?
No, it's very, very common. You would want to meet your doctor. You would want to meet your contractor or whomever the professional is going to be that helps you out. And so we have that all the time. We meet with potential clients all the time. Sometimes they turn into engagements, sometimes they don't. And I would certainly want to meet you as well. So, you know, Sevag comes to me and has a litigation matter. I don't know if I'm going to, you know, hire, or I don't know if I'm going to be your lawyer or not. I want to meet you. I want to see what the issue is. Same way that you're trying to meet with me. So we have that interaction, and we don't charge for the initial consultation. We make sure it's a good fit, and if it is, then we represent you.
And then do you take people in contingent fees as well? Because, you know, you hear it all the time. Well, if I win my case, then I'll pay you. Is that happening a lot?
Yes, it's actually happening more often than in the past. There are hybrid arrangements now with law firms where in the old days, actually not the old days, but traditional billing model is the hourly, so every 6 minutes you're being billed. Nowadays, especially coming off the recession, there are some hybrid arrangements that firms are engaging in. That is that a portion of the bill will be billed hourly, a portion of it will be on a contingency matter if you're seeking the recovery of money. And so some firms do that. We're certainly amenable to doing that. And then there's other practice areas like the plaintiff's personal injury and the medical malpractice, and then some employment matters that are on a contingency as well.
Incredible, gentlemen. We are out of time this week on the program. Thank you two so much, and good luck with you and your firm. It sounds like you're doing some incredible stuff out there.
Thanks a lot, Sevag. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thanks.
That's all for this edition of San Joaquin Spotlight. To the volunteer crew that made this and every production possible, we couldn't do it without you. To our fans at KFSR listening to us on the radio or watching this broadcast at CMAC, thank you as well. I'm your host, Sevag Tateosian. We heard from Mr. Lang and Mr. Quall with Lang, Richter, and Patch.
Richert and Patch.
It's
yes.
not Richard, it's Richter.
Correct.
Tune in next week for a new edition.